Part 73. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 721. During this whole process, Suliang had no resistance at all. Even though his cultivation level far exceeds that of this world, it is still difficult to fight against the rules of the entire world. Not even Suliang can do this. Standing up again, Suliang looked up at the white clothes above the sky. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. So, is this the power of the Emperor? A casual word can mobilize the power of the entire world, as if a new law has been formulated. Yes, since he is the great Emperor, he is naturally the great Emperor of the entire world. He dominates the entire world and can mobilize the rules. What's the surprise? Only. If that's the case, wouldn't it be even more difficult to deal with? Confronting the rules of an entire world has nothing to do with cultivation strength. How can it be possible? I said, I don't want to hurt you, please don't stop me again. Bai Yi looked at Suliang calmly. Ever since I took that position, you are no longer my opponent and can no longer stop me. This is your own choice, to end your own immortality, and let me sit in this position, alone until now. That being the case, of course you have to bear the consequences. This is what you taught me. I always keep it in mind, but what about you? You should have forgotten it a long time ago, right? A trace of disappointment flashed in his eyes, and then Bai Yi returned to his previous posture. Only you, I don't want to see you stop me. To this, Suliang didn't say a word, he just held Lei Zhang in his hand, gathered his sword intent, and slashed out with one sword. Followed closely. Chapter 610 Chapter 609 Become Emperor or Die, Suliang's Dilemma. It was Suliang himself, rushing towards the direction of Bai like an arrow from the string. At the same time, following Suliang were Qin Benjiao and others. Even Tao Yaoyao and Mu Qingqian, who were the weakest in cultivation, had no intention of backing down at this moment, with firm expressions. For them, this is a life or death battle for their husband. How could it be possible to retreat? How could it be possible to admit defeat, even if it was against the whole world? So what? Feeling the power of his ladies, a smile gradually appeared on the corner of Suliang's mouth. Just stay with your ladies. Even the great emperor, even the rules and power of the entire world, will be shown to you. This moment. The sword energy and sword intent, which were already so sharp that they almost tore apart time and space, seemed to be much more dazzling. Even the great emperor in Bai felt a hint of pressure. He stopped what he was doing and stretched out his hand to deal with Suliang and the others. Next moment, Suliang and others collided with Bai, and time and space seemed to be silent and broken at this moment. Frowning and looking at Suliang and others in front of him, Bai Yi felt a little troubled. Although I don't want to hurt him, he keeps blocking me, which really gives me a headache. As expected of you, you are really not good. However, when Bai Yi saw the sweet smile on the corner of Suliang's mouth, she suddenly became irritable. Such a sweet and happy smile is something I have never seen before, and it has never been given to me. Why on earth, how are they better than me? Let you give the happiness and sweetness that belongs to me to others. If I could find you sooner, I could find you sooner. His eyes gradually became crazy, and the obsession in his heart was ignited again. Bai Yi no longer cared about showing mercy, and suddenly took action, blasting Suliang and others out with one palm. Although Suliang, who was at the front, suffered the most damage, it was the emperor who took action after all, and some of the girls were still affected. For a moment, Suliang and others all fell to the ground and struggled to get up, but it was extremely difficult. Bai Yi didn't want them to bother him again, but under this palm, even if they were not seriously injured, they could not get up. And the other side. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Bai Yi has completed the final preparations and is about to launch his countless years of planning to reverse the world and recast reincarnation. This time, Sul Yang and others were unable to stop him. And at this moment when Bai Yi was about to succeed, the whole world seems to have pressed the pause button. Even the speck of dust flying in the air stopped in place, unable to move. Next moment, going back in time, everything is reversed. If the memory did not exist, it would be as if it had never happened. The space was torn apart, and a beautiful figure stepped out in one step and came to the crowd. Lord of Yinghuo. When Sul Yang told the origin of the other party, his voice sounded like it was indeed the case. Why is she here? Wan Qing, Tan Qinjia, and others expressed confusion and vigilance about the arrival of the Lord Yinghuo. Although they haven't seen each other for a while, they still remember that the Lord of Yinghuo is basically their enemy. From the beginning, he attacked the righteous Tianjiao in the Tianzheng Dragon battle, and then seemed to be targeting Sul Yang and the others, causing trouble several times. Although nothing big has happened until now, they have resolved it perfectly every time. But that's because her husband and she are so powerful, and we can't forgive her for that. Especially Ji Hongchen. The death game played by the Lord of Yinghuo caused her to almost lose control and run away, and Sul Yang almost died. Now, with all her heart on Sul Yang, how could Ji Hongchen forgive the Lord of Yinghuo? If it weren't for the fact that she had just been injured and couldn't get up for a while, she wouldn't have been spared at all. Biting her lips and glaring at the Lord of Yinghuo, Ji Hongchen had anger in his eyes. The same is true for 11 Hang on the side. After all, her doll body went berserk because of the Lord of Yinghuo. What are you doing here? Wan Qing asked with a frown, her tone full of confusion and vigilance. However, the Lord of Yinghuo just glanced at Wan Qing and smiled faintly. Immediately. Then he turned around and looked at the white clothes in the distance. With me here, you can't succeed. When he said this, Lord Yinghuo's face was still a little pale. After all, just now she forcibly reversed time and space, which also included a great emperor. It was already a miracle that she could succeed. Naturally, the cost was huge and unbearable. And on the other side. After hearing this, Wan Qing and others all looked blank. This is here to help us? But why? We have always been enemies, we have obviously foiled her plans countless times, why should she help us? This is unreasonable. Looking confused, Wan Qing and others couldn't figure this out at all. However, Sul Yang stood up and looked at the Lord of Yinghuo from a distance, with some emotion and sigh. It's okay, master, sister, she is not an enemy. Not only is he not an enemy, but he is also someone familiar to each of us. We got to know each other day and night, and understood her every joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. All the unreasonable and puzzling things in the past had long since attracted Sul Yang's attention. Sul Yang had thought about it countless times and had already made assumptions in his mind. At this moment, when he really saw the Lord of Yinghuo, Sul Yang immediately understood the other party's identity. Only. What happened to make you like this? Frowning slightly, Sul Yang looked at Bai not far away, thoughtfully. And the other side. Qin Benjiao also came to her husband, nodded and agreed. I promise, she is really not an enemy. Qin Benjiao is not stupid at all, and can even be said to be a rare smart person in the world. As the person who has the most contact with the Lord of Yinghuo, how could she not guess the identity of the other party? It is precisely because of this that Qin Benjiao believes in her the most, as much as she believes in herself. Listening to what Sul Yang and Qin Benjiao said, Wan Qing and others originally had some doubts about the identity of the Lord of Yinghuo, but now, they had to put aside their doubts temporarily. Since your husband says you can trust him, it can at least prove that this person's purpose is consistent with yours. In this case, should we be able to cooperate temporarily? It should be much easier to deal with the powerful emperor Bai with the addition of Lord Yinghuo, right? Looking at each other, Wan Qing and Yu Ji nodded, temporarily reaching an agreement. As for everyone else, well, just make them obedient. And just when Suliang and others were discussing the identity of Lord Yinghuo, Bai was a little surprised when he faced the Lord of Yinghuo. He can even reverse his own state. This person seems to be very special. And, observing the Lord of Yinghuo carefully, Bai Yi suddenly said, "Tisk, your state is strange. Your own time mark is not the present, but it is not the past or the future either, at least not this future. It's so amazing. How did you do it?" My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 722. By the end, Bai Yi was a little curious. Just as you want him to come back, we will always do miraculous things for the people we love. Suliang took a step forward at this time and came to the side of the Lord of Yinghuo. If I encountered such a thing, I would do the same, and, she made a different choice from you. She did not choose to affect the world. As he spoke, Suliang turned his head and looked at the Lord of Yinghuo beside him. Benjao. As soon as these words came out, everyone present except Qin Benjao was stunned. Tan Kinja and others looked at Qin Benjao standing in front of everyone in astonishment, and then looked at the Lord Yinghuo, but they still couldn't believe it. The Lord of Yinghuo was actually Benjao all along? Isn't this right? Benjao has always been by his side, how could a second one appear? Hey, wait a minute, it doesn't seem impossible? Everyone suddenly realized a problem. The Qin Benjao in front of him actually has mastered the power of time and space. Now because Qin Benjao is too weak, she may not be able to do such a thing, but when she reaches Wan Qing's level of cultivation, maybe she can really do it? No one is sure, but no one dares to deny it. There are so few people who have mastered the power of time and space, so few that no data records have been preserved at all. Naturally, it is not known what a powerful controller of time and space would look like. However, since she is Benjao, why did she return to the present and why did she do these things again? Sure enough, you still discovered it? The Lord of Yinghuo smiled, with a little sparkle in his eyes, and looked at Suliang seriously. Haven't seen you for a long time. Well, long time no see. Suliang nodded and smiled. And the other side? Bai Yi asked curiously. Since you don't belong to this time, or even this era, why do you want to stop me? After taking a deep look at Bai Yi, the Lord of Yinghuo seemed to have a flash of sadness in his eyes. Because you want to hurt him, so I must stop you. The Lord of Yinghuo's voice was very firm. She had seen another future and experienced the moment when he disappeared. After spending countless efforts and going through countless hardships, she returned to this moment and made countless arrangements just to prevent this ending from happening again. Coming from another future, this life is all about change. So, no matter what, the Lord of Yinghuo must stop Bai Yi here. Although they did not hear the voice of Lord Yinghuo, at this moment, all the girls miraculously understood what Lord Yinghuo was thinking. He may really dissipate. No, this is absolutely not allowed to happen. I've already lost him once, no matter what, I can't lose him again. With their expressions firmed up, the girls faced Bai Yi, their murderous intent gradually boiling over. Can this? Bai just smiled faintly. So what? Do you really think you are my opponent? Do you have any misunderstandings about the Emperor? With the addition of the Lord of Yinghuo, it seems that Suliang's side has a greater chance of winning. After all, the Lord of Yinghuo came with the firmest determination, spanning endless time, and the most bizarre and powerful power of time and space. Even the existence of white clothes can reverse the flow. It seems that Bai Yi can indeed be stopped. But so what about Bai Yi? She is the great emperor, living at the end of the imperial road, an invincible existence that has dominated the past and present for 5,000 years. As long as she cannot reach her level, she can only exist like an ant to her. Since they are ants, what difference does it make if they are more or less in number? For Bai Yi, the appearance of the Lord of Yinghuo just now was just an individual among the ants that interested her. It was really not worth shocking and frightening her. The reason why Suliang and others are not wiped out. It's just because she has her own plans. Of course you can't hurt him. The reason why he treats himself like this and tries every possible means to stop him is just because he is not the real him yet and does not remember himself. Once he remembers everything in the past and everything he had at the beginning, it will definitely not be like this. As for others, although they were so bold in stealing other people's people when they were not around, which made them very angry and wanted to kill them casually. But they are very important to him. For them, he is willing to give up a lot and compromise a lot. This is the hope of achieving his goal. It can't be erased, but it's okay to hurt it. Looking at Suliang and others with beautiful eyes, Bai Yi said lightly. Give up those illusions you shouldn't have. No matter how hard you struggle, you can't be my opponent. Immediately, keeping her beautiful eyes fixed on Suliang, Bai Yi said lightly. I don't want to hurt you, but if you insist on doing so, I will have to take action. Even if you hate me, I don't care about that much. Hearing this, Suliang frowned and his heart sank. Others might not understand, but Suliang knew it clearly. Bai Yi's words were clearly threatening him. If he continues not to listen to Bai Yi and let Bai Yi achieve his goal, she will attack Qin Benjiao and others. As for everyone present, except for Suliang, no one was her opponent at all. Even being able to stop her for a moment was a luxury. In this way, if she really wants to hurt Qin Benjiao and others, Suliang really has no choice. Surrender like this? How can it be? Strength, still strength. If the strength is a little lower, he will fall into such a passive situation. Although he has improved his strength quickly enough, it seems that it is still not enough. If I had known this earlier. Forget it, there is no use thinking about this now. Instead of doing useless thinking here, it is better to find a way to defeat Bai Yi before Bai Yi takes action. Only in this way can we protect our ladies. Suliang knew very well that this was his only way and chance. Then, there was no response to Bai Yi. Suliang said nothing and struck directly. He slashed at Bai Yi with the sword energy, carrying Lei Zhang's golden thunder light. Suliang used all his strength to activate it. Even the space was torn apart and time was torn apart. Distortion. And at the same time, the Lord of Yinghuo actually took action at the same time, applying the power of time and space to the sword energy. This is not a simple time acceleration or space transfer. The Lord of Yinghuo simply takes action and disrupts the state of time and space above the sword energy. The sword energy is sometimes fast and slow, and even occasionally flashes backwards, and the spatial orientation is also very unstable. Although the attack is simple, it is very effective when used to confuse. Seeing such an application of the power of time and space, Qin Benjiao exclaimed that it was magical and felt eye-opening. Then, just like that, the sword energy that empowered the two people struck Bai Yi. The effect was very obvious, making Bai Yi take a few steps back. For a moment, he couldn't even care about Suliang and others. See this? Suliang hurriedly said to the Lord of Yinghuo. Take them all away quickly. After knowing the identity of the Lord of Yinghuo, Suliang's trust in her was immediately fulfilled. After all, as the first person to be with him, Suliang has never doubted his girlfriend and has always trusted her 100%. Even if it is another future girlfriend, the same is true. Suliang was relieved to hand them over to the Lord of Yinghuo. And only the power of time and space of the Lord of Yinghuo can be sure to take everyone away in front of Bai Yi. However, regarding Suliang's request, Lord Yinghuo shook his head and did not agree. She appeared here just to save Suliang. If Suliang didn't survive in the end, even if she took them away, what would happen? And, having experienced such a scene once, Lord Yinghuo knew it very well. If Suliang dies, even if she rescues everyone now, it will be of no use. I'm afraid that many people will follow him and leave, and the remaining people will embark on the same path as her, trying to find a way to bring him back. Seeing the Lord of Yinghuo shaking his head in rejection, Suliang sighed. Although I had already guessed this outcome, I still feel a little complicated now. Why do you feel so moved and worried at the same time? That's when. Boom. There was a loud roar, and Bai Yi finally stopped passively resisting, and just punched down, smashing the joint sword energy of Suliang and the Lord of Yinghuo. Immediately. Looking at Suliang with a cold face, the Lord of Yinghuo's voice also turned cold. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 723. I have given you many opportunities and tolerated you many times, but you don't cherish it at all. You always think that I won't do anything to you. My patience has been exhausted by you. Now, I have decided to resolve this matter as soon as possible and let you come back. The words fell. He stretched out his hand from a distance, and in just a moment, all the girls came to Suliang's side. Suliang gently squeezed his hand, and the next moment, Suliang felt that his whole body seemed to be controlled, and he had no way to move. Give you two choices. Bai looked down at Suliang. Or, sit on this throne and become emperor immediately. Only in this way can we return to immortality, and after recasting reincarnation, can we return safely. If you don't proclaim yourself emperor, everyone will die in my hands. While talking, Bai waved his hand, and immediately, countless phantoms appeared out of thin air and surged towards the crowd. These phantoms have different strengths, ranging from the strongest transcendence realm to the immortality realm, and there are so many of them that they are as turbulent as the ocean tide. There is no way Qin Benjao and the other girls can resist it. And in the middle of these phantoms, there was an emperor's throne rising high. Once they gave up on Suliang, Suliang was afraid that he would be forced to proclaim himself emperor. This is an absolute killing situation, a certain death situation. This seems to be a dilemma for both Suliang and the girls. Proclaim the emperor and fulfill Bai Yi's long-cherished wish, or not proclaim the emperor and watch everyone die in Bai Yi's hands. No matter which choice he made, it was not what Suliang wanted. If he proclaims himself emperor, he will seemingly achieve immortality. Standing at the same height as Bai Yi, he has the possibility of confronting Bai Yi. However, this also means that Suliang followed Bai Yi's plan. The most important is, if you want to be emperor, you must cut off the cause and effect. From then on, Suliang had nothing to do with the girls. What past and present lives, what love in several lives, what vows to never separate. Everything will be reduced to nothing, they will never be able to see each other again, and they may even lose each other's memory. Even if he survives, he will live with regret, and remorse. How can you accept such an ending? Neither Suliang nor the girls can accept it. It seems like this. It seems that Bai Yi gave Suliang two choices, but in fact, for Suliang and the girls, neither one worked. Or, they have a third option. I don't know how to make a choice. Qin Benjao took a step forward, staring coldly at Bai, the sword flying in her hand, the power of time and space fully activated. Either you cut off the karma with us and fall into the script you wrote, or you want us to die. No matter which outcome, we don't need it. Why should you decide our ending? Sulang will not choose anything. No matter what, we will be with him, whether life or death. In your last life, you gave up your status as a human king with double pupils for me and resolutely entered reincarnation. Fortunately, I met you again in this life. It's time for me to protect you. No matter what, I will never leave you or lose you again. Even though she was not the strongest, facing Bai Yi, Qin Benjiao still didn't feel any weakness. The sword was so sharp that it seemed like it was going to chop Bai Yi into pieces. But under Qin Benjiao's sword, nothing could get close to Sul Yang. After Qin Benjiao, Tan Qinja also stepped forward, and the power of her charming body was fully activated, causing everyone in front of her to kill each other. Looking at Bai Yi coldly, Tan Qinja's voice was filled with endless cold murderous intent. I will never allow anyone to hurt him again. In my last life, when faced with the execution of the immortals in the sky, you stood in front of me. Even under the edge of the sword, the immortals would bow down and eventually fall. I have already agreed on this life, how can I lose you again? If I want to hurt you, even if it is an immortal in the sky or even an unparalleled emperor, I will never allow it. If you don't need to talk nonsense with her anymore, just go out and capture her. Wan Qing said coldly, not afraid even when facing the emperor. After 800 years of reincarnation in the world of mortals, how could I lose you again? You were my teacher before, always protecting me and pampering me. But now, I am your teacher, and it is time for me to protect you. I will never let anyone hurt you again. And behind Wan Qing, Yang Kaoj and Qin Wanyu took action together. One of them attacked unparalleled in a tyrannical posture, while the other played the piano with his bare hands. The effect was miraculous, and they firmly guarded Sul Yang's side. Qin Wanyu looked at the familiar Changqin in front of her with a smile on her lips. In the previous life, you were the overlord and I was the princess, but we were slandered as a monster by the world. You fought for me in the world, risking everything, so that no one in the world would dare to mention this matter again. Chapter 611 Chapter 610, Integrating Emotions into One's Body and Becoming Emperor. Now, it's my turn to risk everything for you. And the pretty face of Ying Kaoj on the side became increasingly cold. Affected by the so-called destiny, I thought about killing you more than once and did things that were detrimental to you. You never explained, you just took care of me silently. I have agreed that I will stay by your side forever to make up for my mistakes, and I won't let anyone hurt you. Later, Jing Meng, Mu Qingqian, Tao Yao Yao, Yefei, He Ying in the past, Ji Hong Chen, Yu Ji. Everyone rushed forward without hesitation and tried their best to protect Sul Yang. Even in the face of Bai Yi's killing spree, they still stood by Sul Yang's side and never retreated. Killing game, so what? Choice, nonsense. As long as I can be with him, what difference does it make in this life, the next life, or death? The most important thing, and the only unquestionable thing, is that we must be together. No matter life or death, we will be together in this life and the next. You see, this is our response. Sul Yang smiled lightly and said softly to Bai Yi. Refusing to die is not a sign of cherishing life, it is just because there are things more important than life and death. At this moment, Sul Yang was no longer entangled or confused, and faced everything in front of him calmly. What, how could this be possible? Bai Yi frowned, not understanding what was happening in front of him. It's obvious that she loves him the most, and it's obvious that she cares about him the most. When I was with him in the past years, I had always been very well behaved and listened to his words. Even if I lost him later, I still made countless secret plans to get him back, and it took a lot of hard work all the way to where I am today. And what about them? It was just that we met him once, and even in this life, we were not together for many times. But why is the result like this? Why are they so calm and even a little happy in the face of their own threats? Why, after doing so much for him, did he still choose them instead of himself? In this case, what if he comes back? What is the difference between the result and the past? At this moment, Bai Yi's belief was about to collapse. No, I don't believe it, it shouldn't be like this. Muttering to himself, the madness in Bai Yi's eyes became more intense. There is nothing that cannot be understood and cannot be believed. Suliang smiled faintly and looked at Bai Yi. You do love him very much, but the path you took was wrong from the beginning. What Qin Benjiao and others brought to Suliang was waiting, the happiness and sweetness of being together, caring for each other, risking life and death for each other, and a tacit understanding. This is the difference. Along the way to now, I have experienced countless hardships and dangers. If there was no support, how could Suliang have made it all the way to this point? And Qin Benjiao and the others are the ties and connections that truly support Suliang. So, give up. Suliang said to Bai Yi calmly. He wouldn't want you to do that either. Even though all the memories and imprints of that life were gone, Suliang was still able to say this on his behalf. After all, he was alone. The old Bai Yi might have really loved him. But today's Bai Yi, this love, is different. Bringing him back is no longer something Bai Yi does for him, but because I want him back, so I must let him come back. The difference is really too big. Even if Suliang was extremely cooperative from the beginning, Bai Yi would not succeed. Give up. Bai Yi listened to Suliang's words and murmured to himself. Did I really do something wrong? For a while, the surging shadows all around stopped in place, and Bai Yi seemed to be showing signs of stopping. It seems like everything is over? It seems that Bai Yi really stopped his plan because of the feelings between Suliang, Qin Benjiao, and others. For a while, there was a hint of joy and relaxation on the faces of the girls. Although I was well prepared, I still firmly believed that as long as I was with Lang Jun, nothing would matter. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 724. But who would be willing to die if they could live a good life and be with their husband? Only. It's so simple, does Bai Yi give up? Touched by our feelings, awakened by Lang Jun's words, and then repented and so on. It's really hard to believe. Qin Benjiao and others already have loved ones, so they naturally know what it feels like to lose a loved one. Once there was hope that he could return completely, how could he give up? Just like the Lord Yinghuo who appeared in front of everyone. Maybe the methods used are different, but they will never give up. Frowning, the girls became alert again. And the other side. Suliang's face had that indifferent smile from beginning to end. Walking forward slowly, Suliang looked at Bai Yi who was a little distracted in front of him and sighed. You've been on the wrong path from the very beginning, girl. The last name was completely blurted out by Suliang subconsciously. But even Suliang himself felt that it was very suitable and natural. After hearing this, Bai Yi raised his head and looked at Suliang. Vaguely, she felt like she saw him again, and saw him in front of her, using gentle sighs to tell her her mistakes and teach her what the right thing should be. But this kind of picture is just an illusion after all, and it only lasts for a moment. Soon, Bai Yi woke up. Looking at Suliang in front of him in confusion, at this moment, Bai Yi just felt lost. After all, it's not you. Muttering softly to himself, Bai Yi sighed. The belief that had been shaken at first became firm again. Stretching out his hand and facing Suliang from a distance, Bai's voice was cold, but filled with unspeakable madness. Give you one last chance, agree to me and proclaim yourself emperor, or reject me and watch them die in front of you. Just because you are you, I am sure this method will work for you. If it were you, you would never watch the one you love die in front of your eyes and live alone. Just like in the past, although you said you wanted to end your immortality, you did not give up your qualification to be emperor just because you wanted to save me. Although it will hurt you to do this, I'm sorry, I have to do this. Biting her cherry lips, Bai Yi's expression became more determined. After listening to Bai Yi's words, Suliang sighed slightly, understanding in his heart. How could Suliang be able to easily shake the obsession that lasted for thousands of years? Don't talk about Suliang. Even if the ancient taboo stood in front of Bai Yi and told her in person, she might not be able to listen. At this moment, she was completely trapped in her own morbid paranoia. If you just say it, you won't listen at all. So, absolute force must be used to make her stop. Only after making her stop can we find a way to wake her up. Otherwise, this girl will fall into complete madness and destroy herself and the entire world. But absolute force? This thing really doesn't exist. All of them, even the Lord of Yinghuo, are no match for Bai Yi. How could it be possible to control her with absolute force? Unless, sit in that position and directly proclaim yourself emperor. But if you proclaim yourself emperor, the consequences will be too serious. Cutting off the cause and effect, cutting off all connections with his wives, neither Suliang nor the other girls could accept this fact. Unless he can find another way to become emperor and escape from Bai's control. But how could I possibly do something that no one had been able to do for countless years, and in such a short period of time? It seems that this is an unsolvable crisis. However, Suliang did not give up. After experiencing the confusion and anxiety just now, Suliang seemed very calm at this moment, constantly analyzing everything in front of him. In this world, there is absolutely no dilemma that has absolutely no solution. It may seem that there is no solution, but in fact, there is no way to solve it. As for the current situation, Suliang seemed to have only two options before his eyes. Either he would die at Bai Yi's hands and everything would disappear, or he would find a way to become emperor the next day. There are 3,000 avenues, but different paths lead to the same destination. Since the imperial path exists, then there is definitely more than one. However, Suliang has not found the key yet. Don't know why. Suliang always felt that this key had always been in his hands, always by his side, and within his reach. Maybe, I'm just used to it, and I just think it's natural, so I never paid attention to it. What exactly is it? Looking at the approaching white man, Suliang's eyes were blank for a moment, and his whole body seemed to be frozen in place. And at the same time, scenes flashed through Suliang's mind, and Suliang fell into constant thinking and memories. The young man king and the white-haired girl have been together for 300 years. At the moment the girl disappeared, they entered reincarnation and promised the next life. Obviously, if he continues to practice, sooner or later he will become the eternal king of the human race, and perhaps even become a great emperor and become immortal. But he would rather abandon these than go through reincarnation with her and agree on the next life. The swordsman boy obviously has the peak talent of swordsmanship. Without the which, he can still become a peerless swordsman. Regardless of the which, no one can criticize him. On the contrary, he himself can become the best swordsman in the world. But in order to save the witch, the young man climbed to the sky with his sword, killing each person with one sword, making the sky weep with blood, and the immortal was frightened, and finally died. For her alone, I gave up everything I had and spent several years raising my sword, just for this glory. True monarch Liasu was already one of the few peerless masters in the world. He was extremely talented. After breaking through the death barrier, he might not be able to take another step forward and achieve the status of a great emperor. And given his status, if he wanted to find a disciple or a Taoist companion, I am afraid that countless people in the world would flock to him. But for that girl, true Lord Liasu made a big fuss in the Changsheng family and became the enemy of the world. In the end, he spent his entire life just to send her to ascend. He obviously already has the cultivation, status, and fame that everyone envies. Even if he abandons the girl, no one dares to say that he is wrong. Instead, they will say congratulations. But for her, true Lord Liasu still gave up everything he had and resolutely entered reincarnation. When the Overlord was alive, he only favored Meiji. When she was slandered as a demon concubine by the world, he would rather be the enemy of the world to protect her. No matter how confident he is, before fighting the world alone, the Overlord may not be able to guarantee victory. He is already an emperor on earth, and his cultivation is outstanding. What kind of concubine do you want? But for the one he loves, he risks losing everything and fights the world alone. Why? What is this? His eyes became brighter and brighter, and Suliang seemed to have caught something. At this moment, Suliang seemed to have transformed into a soul state, returning to the simulations he had experienced before and experiencing those impressive places again. And the things that had vaguely appeared in my mind before became more and more clear during this process. The little junior brother who follows the natural way of Taoism obviously has the best cultivation level in the world. As long as he is quiet and inactive, he can ascend the great road and achieve supreme supernatural powers. But for the sake of the world, the young man resolutely went down the mountain and joined the world of mortals. He took his senior sister to protect him all the way and became the enemy of the world. In the end, he gave up everything and replaced his senior sister with riding a crane to ascend. Obviously he does not need to pay attention to his senior sister, he can achieve supreme cultivation in peace and in action, so why is he like this? And beyond these. After the boy died because of herself, the witch resolutely entered reincarnation, hoping to meet again in the next life. The girl Wan Qing gave up becoming an immortal and joined reincarnation just to meet you again. Senior sister's two souls broke apart, and she also gave up becoming an immortal and threw herself into reincarnation, just to be by your side again. And that purple-haired girl fell into the abyss after her husband died, but guarded the border for countless years, just for a promise with you. Why is this so? Give up the opportunity to become an immortal, give up being a human being, and even give up everything about yourself, just to meet again in the world of mortals. With a chuckle, Suliang seemed to understand something at this moment. No wonder. From the simulation of the ancient taboo, Suliang actually saw his thoughts on the road to becoming emperor. Although this road is convenient and fast now, becoming emperor requires cutting off all causal connections. He has indeed achieved immortality, but he also falls into endless loneliness. What's the point? There are big problems with this road to becoming emperor, and even from this road to becoming the emperor. This path is actually completely wrong. As an emperor, he can indeed control everything in the world and even interfere with the operation of rules. But because of this, does it have to be ruthless? How can it be? This was the wrong path from the beginning. Certainly. The ancient taboo just had a vague idea and did not delve into it. Otherwise, Xiao Chuanzi would not be allowed to sit on the throne. At that time, he only vaguely felt that there was a problem, but he could not detect what the problem was and could not solve it. Although it cannot be solved, the ancient taboo also tried to find a new way to become emperor. But, until the end, he seemed to have not found it, which was a pity. At that time, Suliang just lamented that it was difficult to become emperor, and even the ancient taboos could not be found, but he never thought deeply about the reasons. Now it seems that the reason seems very clear and simple. As an ancient taboo, it is immortal. It has been seen in the world for countless years, and it has even experienced countless joys and sorrows, partings and separations, and has seen the world of mortals. That's exactly what it is. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 725. At the same time as I was tired, My feelings naturally became a lot indifferent. This is inevitable, and it's really no one's fault. But it happened that the road to becoming emperor on the second day had something to do with this. How can a person with indifferent feelings understand the true meaning? This moment. Countless thoughts connected together in Suliang's mind, making Suliang completely wake up. Just like myself and my wives, what connects us is our emotions for each other. Only with this emotion, Qin Binjao and others will risk their lives for Suliang, wait desperately, and even be willing to go to reincarnation together, and Suliang can also hold on and say that he has not given up yet. Without this feeling, Suliang would have given up resistance long ago, and Qin Binjao and others would have given up on Suliang. Just like those simulations. Every choice, every ending, is all because of the existence of feelings. It seems regretful and miserable, but in fact, it is full of love. It turns out that the second road to becoming emperor is like this. Humans are not grass and trees, so how can they not have feelings? Even if you practice the way of ruthlessness, you can't completely cut off love and sex. No matter how hard you try, you can't become that cold and ruthless existence like heaven. As for the great Dao, since this is the case, he will naturally not favor the ruthless way. If you are in the position in front of you, after ascending to it, you must cut off the cause and effect, give up everything, be cold and ruthless, and represent the ruthless way. There should also be a path, representing the path of sentient beings. However, due to various reasons, this path did not meet the needs of this world, so it was hidden. But no matter how deeply it is hidden, it will eventually be found one day. Now, Suliang has already found this path. Integrate emotions into the body and firmly believe that emotions are the basis for maintaining existence. Suliang looked up at Bai Yi and said softly. This. It is also the foundation of the path he has taken. Regardless of whether it is correct or not, this path is the most suitable for the human race. This moment. Suliang felt as if a door had been pushed open by himself, making his whole body suddenly enlightened and seeing everything more colorful. A glimmer of light emanates from the body, and the whole person seems to be bathed in divine light, as if the whole world is cheering and accepting. Next moment. The aura of cultivation that was already transcending the world and approaching the emperor suddenly increased. In just an instant, it had surpassed the limit that everyone knew and was approaching Bai Yi. Above the sky, there seemed to be flashes of colorful spiritual light, followed by a large and majestic chair. The position of the great emperor. The same position as the great emperor, the symbol of the great emperor's status. However, different from Bai's, Suliang's is obviously more generous and majestic, but it always looks like a very soft feeling. It seems that all emotions can be felt from above. Standing with his hands behind his back, Suliang took one step forward, his momentum suddenly increased. Immediately. As Suliang slowly moved forward step by step, his aura continued to break through. In just the blink of an eye, it was already beyond everyone's understanding. And at the moment Suliang sat down. His aura finally settled after a burst of growth, and it faintly surpassed Bai Yi. The majesty of the great emperor emerged from him, but it did not lead to frightening surrender, but instead had endless softness and comfort. It's like a collection of emotions. When you look at Suliang, you will find your own part in him. This moment. After clarifying the new path, Suliang finally proclaimed himself emperor. The absolute force that had always troubled Suliang before was no longer a problem now. Even though he was a long time behind Bai Yi, Suliang's current strength is no worse than Bai Yi's. Even the inability to control cultivation and unfamiliarity with strength due to the rapid growth of strength did not happen to Suliang. At this moment, he is already at his peak. Even if he fights with another great emperor, there will be no problem. He raised his head and looked at Bai Yi. Suliang stood with his hands behind his back, his expression calm and majestic. Next, All this should be solved. Countless years of entanglement and thousands of years of planning and calculations should now come to an end. Is this how the emperor feels? Suliang felt the changes in himself and felt a little sad. Before he failed to become the great emperor, Suliang felt that his cultivation level was pretty good, and he was not even far behind Bai Yi. But now it seems that I am obviously overthinking. After arriving at the great emperor, Suliang felt the vastness of the world and the mystery of this realm. To put it bluntly, with Suliang's current strength, if he wanted to face his former self, it would probably be just a matter of thought. The reason why he could last for such a long time before was really because Bai Yi showed mercy to him, or because he was still useful to Bai Yi. Otherwise, in just a blink of an eye, he and his wives will be wiped out in white clothes. This is true erasure, and there will be no possibility of entering reincarnation. Suliang, you are now. Qin Benjiao looked at Suliang in surprise. Although she was very confident in her husband, she never expected that her husband would ascend to the throne so suddenly and achieve immortality. My man is from the Emperor series. Why does it really feel a little exciting? Although the gap between you and your husband seems to be getting bigger and bigger, there seems to be no need to compare anymore. After all, my husband has already become an emperor. No matter how we compare, it seems to be meaningless. As long as he doesn't proclaim himself emperor, he seems to be no match for his husband. Wan Qing's beautiful eyes were shining brightly as she looked Suliang up and down. I didn't expect that it could actually be done. Proclaiming himself emperor or something like that, the current master must be far better than he was in the past. Maybe, master is the strongest person in this world. In this case, isn't it true that no one can separate themselves from their master? All the ways of heaven and white clothes are of no use in front of him. Wan Qing expressed satisfaction with this. On the other hand, Yuji also expressed her satisfaction. As the great emperor, dealing with the abyss is just a matter of thought. No one will let us separate again. At this moment, Yuji's smile was particularly bright. All in all, the girls were all very surprised and satisfied with the fact that Suliang proclaimed himself emperor. And the other side. Bai Yi looked at all this, but his silver teeth were clenched and his face was dark. Chapter 612 Chapter 611, Obsession dissipates, white clothes end. How is it possible, how can you be able to claim the title of emperor? Although she was also proclaimed emperor, Suliang's proclaiming emperor was completely different from the one she imagined. In Bai Yi's plan, Suliang should follow the path arranged by her and become emperor, cut off the cause and effect, and achieve immortality. Only in this way can he come back completely after reincarnation. During this series of processes, Bai Yi was able to ensure his absolute control over Suliang. But now, Suliang did become emperor, but he did not cut off the cause and effect at all, but made these causes and effects more solidified. In this case, there is absolutely no way to bring him back. And now Suliang is not under Bai Yi's control at all, and is even more powerful than Bai Yi. To a certain extent, Bai Yi can't do anything to him. What should I do? Do you want to give up? Could it be that I was really wrong? No, I was right. He lied to me and promised to stay with me, but in the end he left me. I absolutely cannot give up. I have been planning for thousands of years and now I am about to succeed. How can I give up? Clenching his fists, Bai Yi looked at Suliang in the distance. Now that Suliang is out of his control, all he needs to do is let him return to his control again. Defeat him, control him again, cut off all the cause and effect, and your plan can be launched again. If you can't defeat him, then kill the others and use the yin and yang of life and death to forcibly cut off the cause and effect between them. Then, without any warning, Bai Yi suddenly took action and punched Suliang from afar. This punch was a punch she used with all her strength. If Suliang didn't react, even though it wouldn't hurt him, the aftermath could still wipe out Qin Benjao and others. And even if Suliang reacted, he couldn't catch the move perfectly in a hurry, and he definitely couldn't protect Qin Benjao and others. All in all, Bai Yi's goal is very clear. However, the moment she took action, Suliang, however, seemed to have foreseen everything. He suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of Bai Yi. Lei Zhang suddenly appeared in his hand and was flicked by him. There was a sound of sword sound, and in Suliang's hands, Reizo, which was originally a holy object, emitted a bright light at this moment, as if it was about to be promoted to a higher level, and was full of majesty and sharpness. And this was just something Suliang did casually. As an emperor, you must naturally have weapons consistent with your status as an emperor. The previous Lei Zhang was too weak and would be destroyed in the battle between Suliang and Bai Yi within a few fights. But now Reizo is just right. After settling the matter with the weapon, Suliang suddenly turned to look at Bai Yi, and then slashed out with his sword. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 726. It was such an ordinary sword, and Suliang didn't even use any sword intent. But this moment, the wind and clouds changed color, the earth trembled, and the whole world seemed to turn into a sword. The endless sharp and heavy feeling moved towards Bai. Just a moment. Bai Yi's punch was disintegrated. Immediately, the sharp sword energy kept moving towards Bai Yi, and was about to hurt Bai Yi. But after all, he is the emperor who has been famous for a long time. Even if his aura is not as good as Suliang's, in terms of combat experience and understanding of the emperor's level, Bai is much stronger than Suliang. Therefore, it is not that simple to defeat Bai Yi. Then, next moment, after blocking Suliang's sword energy, Bai Yi and Suliang started fighting, and it was hard to tell the winner. For a while, the whole world seems to be trembling and wailing, space is broken, and time is chaotic. Each small world seems to overlap with the world, and the space passage to the endless world disappears and appears, as if it is about to be opened. Even the combined power of the entire world would be unable to withstand a life and death battle between the two great emperors. If Suliang hadn't taken action in advance and found a way to protect Qin Benjao and others, the aftermath of the battle would have turned them into ashes, and they would no longer have the chance to reincarnate. Qin Benjao and others expressed disbelief about this. Is this the great emperor? Isn't this too strong? However, the battle lasted, but it was not long. Soon, the storm dissipated and everything calmed down. Suliang held the sword in his hand and looked calmly at the pale white man in front of him. Only one great emperor can harm another great emperor. At this moment, Bai Yi's vitality has expired. It is only her strong vitality that keeps her alive. That is to say, all this is over. The dust has settled, and the plan that lasted several years ago has been put to a conclusion and is completely over. He let out a long breath. Looking at the women behind him, Suliang was filled with emotion as he thought of the scene in the simulation. And just then, the sound of the simulator suddenly sounded in Suliang's ears. Congratulations to the host, all tasks have been completed. The sound of the simulator rang in Suliang's ears. From it, Suliang seemed to feel a little relieved. Moreover, unlike the continuous comments and rewards after the original task was completed, this time the simulator just said congratulations. Happy? It's just a system, why do you feel happy? Suliang had never felt any emotion in his simulator before, and the relief at this moment was the first time. However, Suliang didn't feel any surprise at all. It seemed that all this was normal. What exactly is going on? Suliang asked curiously. System, where are you from? In the past, Suliang asked about the truth about the simulation, but the system only told him that he did not have enough authority to know. After that, Suliang relied on his guesses, inferences, and observations to understand the truth of the simulation. But Suliang didn't ask about the existence and origin of the simulator. Although there are some speculations in my mind, after all, there is no evidence and there is no way to confirm it. After hearing Suliang's inquiry, the system was silent for a moment before speaking again. This simulator is the remaining ray of original will and the hope formed by digital reincarnation. I only hope that the successor can save this poor child who is possessed by the devil. Suliang completed this task very well. After the words fell, scenes seemed to appear in front of Suliang's eyes. It was a person in the simulation, standing in the dark void, looking at the figure in white, sighing in a low voice, his eyes full of pity and distress, but without any blame. This is especially true for the ancient taboo. Immediately, everyone looked at Suliang, nodded happily, and with a little gratitude, solemnly clasped their fists and saluted, and then slowly disappeared, never to reappear again. And the system was silent. At this moment, Suliang only felt lost, and actually had some melancholy and emotion. Sure enough. Suliang shook his head and sighed. Suliang was not surprised by this truth. After hard work and going through danger, Suliang was rewarded and allowed to grow up. Using simulated images, Suliang can understand the ins and outs and understand the power of emotion. This is not control, this is just the choice and support given to Suliang in his previous life. Let Suliang have the power to face Bai Yi and master the ability to end all this. Thank you so much. Suliang shook his head and sighed, then smiled at the void in front of him. Don't worry, I won't give up on her. Say it. Suliang turned his head and walked towards Bai, leaving only a vague thank you. Arriving in front of Bai Yi, Suliang was silent for a moment and sighed. Sorry, I have no other option. Before Suliang could finish speaking, Bai Yi shook his head. It's my turn to say sorry. Now. Already in a state of near death, the scenes of this life passed before her, seeming to make her understand something. Thinking back to everything I did before. After he left, he continued to plot against him and personally sent him into reincarnation life after life, so that he and the one he loved could only be separated by yin and yang, and it would take hundreds of years for him to reincarnate in the world of mortals before they could see each other again. Is it really right to do this yourself? Really, is it him, is it what he wants, is it the correct result? Obviously I know the feeling of losing a loved one best, but why do I have to create such tragedies again and again? No, this isn't right. Scenes from the past appeared before his eyes, making Bai Yi look more guilty and disappointed. She already realized that she seemed to have done something wrong. Not just wrong, but too many wrong. What I did to him, I owed him so much that I couldn't even pay him back. Death to pay for sins. How many times have you let him die? How could one's own death be enough? I'm sorry for doing such an outrageous thing to you. Bai Yi's eyes were slightly red and he said with a cry. At this moment, she looked like that innocent little girl again. This is the real her. Like the Bai Yi whom Suliang saw earlier, although he looked well behaved and docile, what was suppressed in his heart was the morbid condition caused by extreme pain and persistence. No, it doesn't have to be like this. Suliang waved his hand. Neither he nor those reincarnations had ever blamed her. Otherwise, Suliang would not have been left with the simulator and the hope that he could successfully liberate this poor child who was already possessed by the devil. But without blaming him, how can he eliminate the guilt in Bai Yi's heart? Even the less he blamed, the more guilt Bai felt. For a while, both fell silent. Seeing the white clothes whose vitality was disappearing, Suliang opened his mouth and wanted to say something. But the words haven't been spoken yet. Bai stood up with a smile on his face. Come for a walk with me, okay? Suliang was stunned and looked at Bai Yi seriously. After a long while, he said. There is still a chance. You haven't made any irreversible mistakes yet. Bai Yi naturally understood what Suliang meant, but he just shook his head and smiled faintly. No. Just come with me for a walk. See this. Suliang sighed, hesitated for a moment, and then nodded. Good. He could see the determination in Bai Yi's eyes, but he didn't know how to stop her. Or maybe. Is this the best ending for her? Suliang was him, but he was not him after all. Even if he figured it out, it didn't mean that the pain would be reduced. On the contrary, the confusion after figuring it out will bring greater pain. Then. Suliang simply said nothing more. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 727. After turning around and explaining to his ladies, he followed Bai Yi's footsteps. In this regard, Qin Binjiao and others can be said to be quite relieved. Before, Bai Yi was still a difficult being to deal with. But now, my husband has become an emperor, and he even cut off her life with his own hands, winning the battle easily and cleanly. How could we be in danger again? Although they still don't quite understand the mystery of the great emperor's level, Qin Binjiao and others understand very well that their husband is now invincible. So, no matter what he does, he will feel relieved. Let him be, we'll just take a break. I have been fighting for so long, and I am a little tired. I need to take a good rest at this time. Then, Qin Binjiao and others all took a rest. And the other side. Suliang followed Bai Yi all the way to a very remote and deserted place before finally stopping. Here it is. Suliang frowned. Even though he had experienced the simulation of the ancient taboo, he still had no impression of this place. Who could possibly remember such a desolate place? It doesn't matter here. Bai Yi shook his head, and then waved his hand gently. The scene of Beatty City appeared in front of her again. Seeing this, Suliang frowned instantly. At this moment, Suliang seemed to understand what Bai Yi wanted to do. But it was precisely because of this that Suliang began to worry about Bai Yi. If you do this, the consumption is really too much, please stop. Suliang frowned and said. Now, Bai is almost equivalent to single-handedly manifesting the entire Beatty City. Fortunately, there are no immortal cultivators here, otherwise, even the emperor would not be able to do such a thing. However, even so, Bai Yi's consumption is huge, the real energy is flowing away rapidly, and he can't sustain it for much longer. If the previous white clothes relied on their own true energy and vitality, they could last for a day without dissipating. At this moment, she probably only had an hour. Regarding Suliang's concern, Bai Yi just shook his head. Thank you for your concern, but no need. Immediately. Holding Suliang's hand, he walked forward. Although I have already visited Beatty City, you haven't had a good look here yet, have you? Come on, come and walk around here with me. Every place in Beatty City is a memory of Bai Yi and that ancient taboo. Although he can no longer be seen, it seems nice to be able to take a look at this place again before leaving. With a faint smile on his face, Bai Yi pulled Suliang and walked through the streets of Beatty City. Look here, it's my first time traveling, and this is where I came from. You left me here, gave me some money and left. Humph, it made me panic for a while. Pouting her lips, Bai Yi complained softly, looking like a pure girl acting coquettishly with her sweetheart. After all, this was the first time he traveled out after meeting him, so Bai Yi was certainly impressed. When he left her here and gave her some money, he left without saying a word, which almost made the girl think that he didn't want her anymore. If he hadn't come out to explain later when he saw that he was about to cry, the girl might have really cried to death at that time. Huh, You haven't changed from the beginning to the end. A smile appeared at the corner of Bai Yi's mouth. You came out so quickly, must it be because you couldn't bear to let me cry, right? But Suliang just listened quietly to all this without saying a word. Keep walking forward, and soon you will come to a restaurant. Walking in and sitting on an empty table filled with wine and food, Bai Yi picked up his chopsticks, picked up some and tasted it, nodded with satisfaction. Well, it tastes really good. This is the first time you and I have eaten in a restaurant like this. Out of curiosity, Suliang also picked up a chopstick, tasted it, and then fell silent. The food is not that delicious, the taste can only be said to be average. But for Bai Yi, the reason why it tastes delicious is just because of this memory. And from then on, Suliang and Bai Yi were wandering around Beatty City, eating, drinking and having fun. They seemed to have completely forgotten that the two were fighting enemies just now, and now Bai Yi was on the verge of death. But in fact, Suliang understood everything in his heart. She was just recalling everything she once held dear in her heart. I'm just saying goodbye to the past and letting myself feel relieved. Finally, the two stopped outside Beatty City. Ahem. With a slight cough, Bai Yi covered his mouth and spit out some blood. At the same time, the already somewhat illusory Beatty City fell into a trance and disappeared completely. The aura and vitality of Bai also dropped suddenly. In just an instant, it was as strong as a candle in the wind. So much so. The majestic and magnificent emperor suddenly felt dazed and almost fell down. Suliang hurriedly supported her and couldn't help but said, "Now there is still a chance. I can restore you, and I can even replenish your lost vitality and bring you back to your peak. You don't have to be like this." However, Bai Yi smiled faintly, shook his head gently, and rejected Suliang again. "No, I'm very happy and satisfied that you can do this with me." Immediately, looking at Suliang blankly, a drop of crystal tears fell from Bai's eyes. "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." The obsession dissipated, everything that supported Bai Yi disappeared, but now she only felt that she owed him. She owed him too much to pay back. "It's okay, I never blamed you." Suliang rubbed Bai Yi's little head and sighed. "That way, I feel more relaxed." Bai showed a soft smile, and his figure gradually became thinner. "As expected, you have always been you." Immediately, turning into points of light, the white clothes slowly dissipated along with her dissipating obsession. A great emperor with unparalleled splendor, who had dominated the world for 5,000 years, ended up like this. Suliang was left standing alone, stunned for a long time. For a moment, he felt a little confused and sad. After a long time, Suliang came to his senses, took a deep breath, shook his head, smiled, turned around and walked back. Perhaps, this ending is the most suitable for Bai Yi and what she wants most. Forget it, as long as she has no regrets, then what does she have to worry about? Go away, go find my ladies. This time it was really thrilling. I wonder if Benjeo and the others were frightened. Well, let's go home quickly. It's been a while since I've lived at home. I really miss this feeling. Only, which home should I go back to? Tiandao sect? The mansion in Shengjing of Daxia, or the mansion in Holy Land City? With various thoughts in his mind, Suliang walked slowly towards Qin Benjeo and others. When Suliang found his ladies, they were chatting happily, not looking like they had just experienced a big battle. Even Qin Benjeo also brought Tao Yao Yao and Mu Qingqian. These two little fools were handling the ingredients, as if they were preparing for a barbecue. Seeing this scene, Suliang was completely stunned. Something's wrong. I just finished a big battle, and I don't even think about going back any time, but I'm still having a barbecue here? You guys, this. Leave it alone and let me do it. I'm telling you, none of you bake is as delicious as mine. Gearing up, Suliang walked towards the crowd. At this moment, Qin Benjao, who had already seen her husband, threw the things in her hands directly to Tao Yaoyao. Instead, she greeted him directly and threw herself into Suliang's arms. Tao Yaoyao looked confused and felt a lot of grievances. Sister, you can't be like this. I want a welcome hug from brother Suliang, too. But I didn't dare to disobey the elder sister's wishes, so I had no choice but to continue working aggrievedly. And the other side. Qin Benjao was very happy as she nuzzled into her husband's arms. Sulang, is it over there? Well, it's over, she's gone. Suliang sighed with emotion and told Qin Benjao about Bai Yi's last experience. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 728. I didn't expect that a person like her would actually. Qin Benjao also felt a little emotional. But at this moment, Suliang discovered that someone seemed to be missing. Is there one person missing? Suliang touched his chin and looked at the people in front of him. Who? Qin Benjao tilted her head, feeling a little confused. Are there fewer people? No, they are all here obviously. Master, Sister Wanking, are all here. After counting the number of people, Qin Benjao felt very confused. You girl, have you forgotten yourself? Suliang helplessly patted Qin Benjao's little head. You got the power of time and space from others. Did you forget about them so quickly? Sticking out her tongue, Qin Benjao made a face. Of course I won't forget it. She went over there. If brother Suliang wants to find her, he should be able to find her if he goes there now. As the same person, how could Qin Benjao not know what the Lord of Yinghuo was thinking? Maybe she didn't want to be approached by Suliang? But never mind her, on the surface she didn't want Suliang to come to her, but in her heart, she was already eager to see and talk to Suliang again. Don't refute, you are me, I am you, how could I not understand you? So there's no need to thank me, I'm helping myself, why do I need to thank you? After looking at the direction Qin Benjao pointed, Suliang raised his feet and looked for it. He is not worried that the Lord of Yinghuo will use the power of time and space to hide from him. Suliang is now the great emperor, the strongest and only great emperor in the world, who dominates everything. It's just the power of time and space, and it can't be hidden from Suliang at all. As long as Suliang wants to find her, he can find her at any time. Then, very easily, Suliang found the Lord of Yinghuo who was hiding in the rift in time and space. Does this girl think she can't find her? Suliang smiled helplessly, stepped forward, and knocked in the void. Is anyone here? There was clearly nothing in front of him, but under Suliang's knocking, there was a knock on the door. And in Suliang's sight, the Lord of Yinghuo, who was hiding in the rift of time and space, stiffened, and there was some disbelief on his pretty face. She seemed confused as to why she was found by him. And immediately after, she stood up hurriedly, secretly, and quietly, planning to leave here. However, all of this was seen by Suliang. Suliang knocked on the door helplessly again and said, "Stop hiding, I've already seen you, come out." As soon as these words came out, the foot that Lord Yinghuo had just raised immediately froze in place, and his whole person looked in disbelief. How is it possible? I am hiding in a rift in time and space. No one can discover it except myself, right? How could he, even the emperor couldn't commit such a foul, right? Seeing the pretty face of Lord Yinghuo gradually falling down, Suliang couldn't help but shake his head and burst into laughter. He had met the Lord of Yinghuo a long time ago and had dealt with him more than once. The former Lord of Yinghuo has always maintained a powerful, mysterious, and majestic appearance, like the mastermind behind the scenes, with no expression of joy or anger. And now, there are so many expressions and actions. Although Suliang already knew that she was another future girlfriend of his, Suliang still felt a little funny. The contrast is really too big, the change is too big. Is the little fool in front of me now really the same person as the majestic, mysterious, powerful, and inexhaustible Lord of Yinghuo before? Suliang couldn't help but start to doubt. Is it because Benjiao's disguise is too successful, or is it because she is so smart in the first place, but she never shows it around her? Looking back at his girlfriend who was still bullying Tao Yaoyao, Suliang fell into deep thought. And this time, the space was torn apart, and the Lord of Yinghuo stuck his head out to take a look at Suliang, and then walked out honestly. Are you finally willing to come out? Suliang looked at the Lord of Yinghuo in front of him with a smile on his face. Really, now that I have become the great emperor, do you really think you can hide it from me? Hearing Suliang's words, the Lord of Yinghuo couldn't help but laugh, and his whole body relaxed a lot. Although he has told everyone his identity and even helped Suliang. However, after all, what she had shown to Suliang before was her identity as the Lord of Yinghuo. And even if the ultimate intention was good and no losses were caused, after all, she had plotted against Suliang and the others more than once. She was always worried that Suliang would blame her, ignore her, or even treat her with respect and caution, just like he treated the previous Lord of Yinghuo. Chapter 613 Chapter 612 The happy time that belongs to him and them. But now it seems that the attitude is exactly the same as before. I didn't mean to hide it from you, but this is not the place where I should exist after all. The Lord of Yinghuo smiled faintly. After a moment of silence, Suliang asked. Have you done everything you want to do? Well, thank you Suliang, we've already done that. The Lord of Yinghuo answered with a smile, with a little tear in his eyes. Because of the hopeless and desperate future like Suliang's death, she traveled across thousands of time and returned to this moment, plotting for a long time to reverse the future and rebuild hope. And now, after Bai Yi died and Suliang proclaimed himself emperor, the whole world seemed peaceful, no different from usual times. Even the battle that took place here may not be known to anyone. This is enough. A future that extinguishes hope no longer exists. So, everything I wanted has been achieved. The Lord of Yinghuo nodded, took a step forward, and hugged Suliang. Ever since she pretended to be Qin Benjiao, she had never felt this familiar yet unfamiliar hug again. But then and now, they have completely different feelings. Don't worry, I will never let that happen again in the future. Suliang hugged the Lord of Yinghuo tightly with his backhand and spoke softly. Thank you for your hard work, Benjiao. Different from the previous time when she pretended to be Qin Benjiao, Suliang called her specifically this time. This familiar title that I had not heard for a long time brought a sweet smile to the Lord Yinghuo's lips. He rubbed his little head in Suliang's arms and took a deep breath. Immediately, the Lord of Yinghuo let go of Suliang and backed away slowly, with a happy smile on his face. Now that everything has changed, it's time for me to disappear. With today's ending, I am really happy, very happy. He took a deep look at Suliang again. The Lord of Yinghuo walked straight towards Qin Benjiao, his figure getting thinner and thinner. Until the end, he came behind Qin Benjiao and became one with Qin Benjiao. Disappear. No, I'm just by your side again. Seeing the disappearance of Lord Yinghuo, Suliang fell into silence. And at the same time, Qin Benjiao was stunned for a moment, then turned to look at Suliang, with a big smile on her face, and waved her hands to Suliang. Hurry up, Suliang, you are the only one left. Okay, I'll come right away. Suliang also had a smile on his face and walked towards his girlfriend. Chapter 950, So Family Reunion Daily. In the mansion, Suliang lay on the recliner, squinting his eyes and falling asleep, feeling very leisurely and calm. Bai Yi's affair is over, and now he is already the great emperor, and almost the entire world is dominated by him. If you think about it carefully, everything has really been resolved and there are no enemies left. In this case, of course you can relax completely. Certainly. You still can't stop practicing, especially the practicing of your own ladies. But this is a long-term goal, and there is no need to rush. Feeling the beauty of the sunshine, Suliang felt a little emotional. Ever since he came to this world and met Qin Benjao, he seemed to have been constantly trapped in a whirlpool of troubles and disputes, with almost no pause. Whether it was for self-protection or for his wives, Suliang never stopped practicing at almost every moment. Even if there is an occasional break, it is only a temporary leisure, and there will always be a vague sense of urgency in my heart. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 729. On the contrary, now, he can really relax wholeheartedly. This feeling is actually very good. Suliang expressed that he was very satisfied. And just then, Qin Benjao, who was oppressing Suliang, suddenly turned over and kissed Suliang lightly on the lips, feeling a little unhappy. Humph, it was clearly my turn yesterday, but it was snatched away by master, I must snatch it back today too. Hearing this, Suliang couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Are you embarrassed to say this? Why do you think your sister would snatch it from you? Really? Next moment, Tan Kinja, who had her head resting on Suliang's head, hummed softly, her voice a little dissatisfied. You have the nerve to say that you, a rebellious disciple, have forgotten how you used to steal your master's time. Tan Kinja would certainly be dissatisfied if this girl accidentally robbed her of the opportunity to monopolize her Ailiang. Therefore, it's only natural to find a way to get it back this time. Seeing that her traitor was still a little unconvinced, Tan Kinja snorted again. Let me tell you, don't try to snatch Ailiang away tonight. Today is supposed to be my time. Yesterday I just got back what belongs to me. If the traitor hadn't been the first person to stay with Ailiang in this life. I'm really pissed off. Teeth grinding, Tan Kinja was thinking about the possibility of expelling Qin Benjao, a rebellious disciple, from her school. Benjao, sister, calm down, calm down. Suliang hurriedly comforted him. He didn't expect that just a leisurely afternoon sunbathing could lead to such a situation. All I can say is, are they really worthy of being my own ladies? Aside. Wan Qing glanced at Tan Kinja and Qin Benjao, rolled her eyes, snorted disdainfully, then pushed the two people who were about to fight aside, and occupied the position in Suliang's arms to herself. What is there to fight for in just one night? I can get it whenever I want it. After all, it was once the biggest thigh in the family. Although now there are 3 people in the family, Ji Hiying, Ji Hongchen, and Yu Ji, it seems that this thigh is not very big anymore. But Wan Qing's words are still very effective. Wan Qing narrowed her eyes after finding a suitable position comfortably in her disciple's arms. This afternoon of leisurely lying in master's arms and basking in the sun is simply wonderful. And as the noise started coming here, on the other side, the 2 people who were performing stopped helplessly. Yang Kaoj glanced at Suliang, and then at his dance clothes with long sleeves and skirt. He stamped his feet, tore off the excess part, and then pounced on Suliang. Huh, why are you guys hanging out with your husband, but you want me to dance for you? I don't want to, I am also a powerful empress, okay? How could I be so disrespectful? Behind Yang Kaoj, there seemed to be a figure who looked very similar to her following. It seemed that he was helping Yang Kaoj, but in fact, he was just squeezing towards Sul Yang. That's right, it's none other than Daxia's female general Yefei. The previous Yefei was loyal to his majesty, but now Yefei, who is your majesty, is obviously more important than the husband. After squeezing for a long time, but unable to squeeze in, Yang Kaoj stamped his feet and turned to look at Qin Wanyu. Mother, come and help me. When she challenged Sul Yang with Qin Wanyu, she could shout her initials very smoothly. After all, she found that Sul Yang seemed to like this very much. So much so that it's blurted out now. Immediately, Yang Kaoj looked at Yefei behind him again. Yefei, what are you doing to this? Yefei just blushed, and then continued to pull his majesty out without any psychological burden. Seeing this, Qin Wanyu smiled faintly and continued to play the piano. In the cheerful music of the piano, this scene seems quite festive. On the side, Mu Qingqian and Tao Yaoyao stood together, very excited to try, but a little worried. After all, as the weakest in the family, it doesn't seem right. They are the two weakest except Yefei. Even Yang Kaoj can't squeeze in, let alone them. But this is Lang Jun, how could you miss it if you stick with Lang Jun? Then the two of them couldn't wait to take action. And just then, Jingmeng suddenly appeared in front of the two of them and stopped them. Master! Mu Qingqian was stunned, thinking that the master was going to teach him something. But the next moment, he saw Jingmen's pretty face was red and serious. Let me, my teacher, come first. At the same time, 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen stood aside together, looking like they wanted to join but were hesitant. After all, I was posting with him, so I definitely didn't want to miss it. But a holy lord of the righteous path and a supreme emperor of the demonic path are already senior level figures, aloof from the world. Why are you so embarrassed to compete with a few little girls for a man? But seeing them having so much fun with him one by one, I really want to join in. The more they thought about it, the more bitter they became. For a moment, the two of them even forgot about their hostility to each other. Yuji sat at the stone table nearby, tasting the wine made by Sul Yang himself, watching the scene with a faint smile on her face. As expected of him, the food is delicious, and the wine is also so good. I have dreamed of being by his side again countless times, and now my wish has been fulfilled, and I have no regrets. Compared with the cold, cruel, bloody days full of fraud and calculations for countless years before, the lively life now is indeed more enjoyable and enjoyable. Although it's a bit bland, it's enough. But then, the beautiful eyebrows frowned slightly, Yuji was a little distressed. However, is this family too lively? Really, that is my man, how could I let you be so presumptuous? I am the queen of the abyss. How could there be such a generous queen of the abyss? Putting the wine glass heavily on the table, Yuji also joined the fight. She didn't have the strange worries that 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen had. Then, for a moment, the scene became even more chaotic. Finally, after everything calmed down, everyone gathered around Sul Yang, enjoying the little position they had grabbed. At this moment, Qin Benjao suddenly remembered something. Sulang, the one in white before. I have my own arrangements. Sul Yang smiled faintly and looked into the distance. It still needs some time, wait for me. The cold wind howled, and a cute little loli walked through the snow and ice and returned home. I was happily attending class in school, but I almost fell asleep listening to master's words. But someone suddenly came to the house and said that great things were waiting for her when she returned. Then, she was taken home by the maid who went to the school to pick her up. Sister, what's going on? The little girl bit her finger and asked with her eyes wide open, looking cute, but also a little well behaved. The master said that an immortal suddenly came to the house and said that he would take the young lady to practice. The maid was a little skeptical, but she seemed to have no choice but to believe it because of the relationship she mentioned with the master. How could an immortal or something come to this little place like ours? In short, young lady no longer has to go to the school to listen to master's lectures. She only needs to learn the magic from that immortal. Although she didn't believe in the origin of that immortal, the maid still understood the master's excitement. Become a disciple of the immortal sect, practice immortal magic from then on, seek immortality, have the power to ascend to heaven and enter the earth, and transcend all the jurisdictions of the human world. Who doesn't envy this, who doesn't look forward to it? It's okay if I don't have this opportunity. Now that my daughter has it, I will naturally make it happen for her. On the contrary, the little girl didn't understand anything. She didn't understand any immortals, magic, or fate at all. He just nodded ignorantly, but then his face immediately fell. I don't want to leave home. It's okay to go to school, and you can go home every day, but if you go with that immortal, wouldn't you have to leave home? The little girl's little mind showed great resistance to this matter. Vaguely, she seemed to feel that she had been waiting for someone. But who are you waiting for? Why are you waiting for him, and what is waiting for someone? Don't understand anything. But that didn't stop her from crying and making trouble and not wanting to leave. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 730. See this. The maid sighed and could only coax her well. If she didn't coax her well, she would be punished by the master. Coaxing them all the way, the two of them soon returned to the house. As soon as I entered the house, I saw that the house was decorated with lights and colorful decorations. It was very festive and lively, as if something great had happened. The little girl turned around and ran away without saying a word. If she didn't run away, she would be taken away by some unknown immortal. Never. However, before running a few steps, the little girl bumped into a figure. Ah! With a scream, the little girl fell to the ground, and her little mouth immediately opened up, looking like she was about to cry. Can be followed immediately. A voice that was extremely familiar and nostalgic to the little girl suddenly sounded. Where are you going? Why, don't you want to follow me? Although she didn't understand anything, at this moment, the little girl seemed to feel the throbbing in her soul. She raised her head in confusion, and what appeared in front of the little girl was a very good-looking big brother with a warm aura all over his body and a gentle smile on his face. Big brother, you are. The little girl stopped crying and just looked at the person in front of her in a daze. She didn't know why, even though it was the first time they met, she could always feel a sense of familiarity. At the same time, I'm still very happy, but I feel like crying. What's going on? Her little brain couldn't handle such a complicated matter. Your master? The eldest brother asked softly. Come with me and become your teacher, how about that? Without thinking, the little girl nodded. Okay. He agreed so quickly that the master and maid who came over were frightened. Just now she was crying so hard that she even wanted to run away secretly, obviously not wanting to leave. Why did you just agree now? Isn't this amazing? On the other side, the man didn't feel any surprise. Looking at the little girl in front of him, Suliang held her in his arms with a smile on his lips. After searching for so long, I finally found you. Come on, come back with me. In Su Mansion. On this day, after receiving the message from their husband, the girls got busy early in the morning and started to clean up. There is nothing I can do about it, this is my husband's first apprentice. Of course, as master wives, I have to take care of myself to welcome him. Although the identity of this apprentice made them feel a little bit subtle. While preparing, many people felt a little emotional. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, it was time for my husband to have an apprentice. And just when everyone was getting ready, Suliang and the little girl appeared in front of everyone. The moment she saw the girls, the little girl seemed to be frightened and hid behind Suliang, with only her little head exposed, looking at the girls in front of her. "Don't be afraid, these are your master wives." Suliang smiled and touched the little girl's head and introduced to the girls. "My apprentice, Xiaochuanzi." "Little dumpling?" The girls blinked, not quite understanding the origin of this name for a while. "But it doesn't matter, he is my husband's apprentice and his descendant anyway. Moreover, maybe she will become her own mistress like her mistresses in the future? So complicated?" All in all, at this moment, Qin Binjao and others directly pushed Suliang aside, surrounded the little dumpling, and presented various gifts to her. Vaguely, Suliang also saw a book with Suliang's strategy manual, which was held in Qin Binjao's hand and stuffed into Xiaochuan's arms. Suliang's face darkened, and he almost threw Qin Binjao out. "She is still a child. Can you, a teacher's wife, grow up a little and teach your children better? How outrageous!" However, compared to Qin Binjao's, others were much more reliable. There was no such thing as a strategy manual, which made Suliang relieved. Not long after, the little dumpling who had just arrived home had his hands and body filled with gifts. This time, Xiaochuanzi is no longer afraid of fellow disciples like himself. Instead, he looked at Suliang with a grimace. "Master, I can't lift it anymore." "Then put it aside for now." Suliang touched the little girl's head and said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Xiaochuanzi immediately threw the things in his hands aside and threw himself into the master's arms. "I am really happy to receive gifts from master's wives, but these gifts prevent me from holding master." "Gift, bad." Lying in the master's arms, Xiaochuanzi looked satisfied and smiled, like a little kitten enjoying himself. With his disciple in his arms, Suliang showed a smile. "So what about reincarnation? Just go find her and come back. This can be considered a dream come true, right? It is not only for her to realize her dream, but also for herself to realize her dream. Become a disciple of me. From today on, I will be your master. I will always be by your side and protect you in happiness and health throughout your life." But lying in the master's arms, Xiaochuanzi felt the peace of mind and comfort reaching the depths of his soul. This feeling made her never want to let go after hugging Suliang. He raised his head and glanced at his master. A smile appeared on Xiaochuan's delicate and cute face. Somewhat similar to the one in white. Even though he has forgotten the past and even who he is, the familiar feeling is still there. This time, we will never be separated again. When she woke up in the morning, Tan Kinja felt very bad. Traitor, traitor, totally traitor. It was obvious that he had snatched Liang last night, so why did he just fall asleep without doing anything? And when he woke up, he was still on his bed, not in his husband's room at all. What exactly is going on? What's going on? In this family, except for my traitor, no one else has the need or dare to do this. How many times has this happened? Is it over yet? Ah, it makes me so angry. Tan Kinja was helpless and furious, her pretty face flushed, and she felt bad all over. However, she had no choice. Everything had already happened. Last night had passed. Her turn had only been hers the day before yesterday. It was still early for her next time. What else could she do? It's not like his own rebel disciple, who has mastered the power of time and space and is completely powerless. But this revenge must be avenged, and the traitor must pay the price. In a fierce mood, Tan Kinja opened the door and planned to find trouble for her traitor. At the beginning, Tan Kinja still felt a little guilty because she was the one who stole her disciple's man, so she was a little polite and a little condescending to her disciple. Now, Tan Kinja doesn't feel guilty at all after being tricked by her disciples. Even she was still regretting why she didn't just kick this traitor out, leaving only herself and Lang Jun behind. If I had been so decisive back then, I wouldn't have allowed the traitor to be so arrogant now. Ah, this is so annoying. Boom. The door was opened, startling the girl who passed by the door. Ching, Master Kinja, you are being given to me by Master Benjao again. Xiaochuanzi blinked. She was really not surprised by this scene. Master Benjao and Master Kinja have always been like this, and it's not the first time. What's so surprising? On the contrary, it was herself. I always feel envious to the point of separation because I can't join in. Watching the show of affection between Master and his wife, I feel like I'm going to turn dark every minute. It's none of your business, just leave it alone and go practice hard. Tan Kinja patted Xiaochuanzi's little head and went to Suliang's room angrily to make trouble for Qin Benjao. She had a hunch that the traitor and her husband must still be there. Watching Tan Kinja's leaving figure, Xiaochuanzi thought for a while and followed quietly. Boom. The door was kicked open, and Tan Kinja quickly walked into the room. She stared at Qin Benjao, who was leaning sideways on the bed, looking satisfied, eating and drinking, and she was about to cry. You have eaten and drank enough, but what you are eating is my husband, and it is my share. Traitor, you are still not human. Qin Benjao,